Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, and this is week one. The 2025 season is here. We only have this final episode of Bengals on the Brain before I see you again and review the film, review what happened in week one. Now, that won't be the last time you see me on the First Star Media page. On Friday, we have a preview show. Jake Lisco and I teaming up for our first preview show where you can get a look at the next opponent. Week one may be a little bit different. We're probably going to talk big picture and talk about the Browns and what we expect to see on Sunday. And then join us for our live post-game reaction here on the First Star Media YouTube channel. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe, so you get the notification. First Star every year puts on a good show, gives out a lot of fun prizes, and then you react with us. And there's thousands of people watching at once, so the chat room's flying at the same time. Comments are a good time. It's especially after a win. Those are a little bit more fun. And hopefully the Bengals get one this week against the Cleveland Browns, 1:00. What do we have for this episode then? This is where I go through what I expect to see from the Bengals in 2025. What I expect to see from Joe Burrow and Chase Brown and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and so on. I do stat projections every year. In fact, I just deleted the old ones from last year. I was super close on a lot of guys. Like Joseph Osai had the exact number of pressures, the exact number of tackles, and I had was one off on sacks. And I was like, hey, I'll take that. BJ Hill, I was within a couple of all of those. There was more. There's like 4 or 5 guys where I was really dead on or pretty close. And sometimes I'm way off. I thought Jamar Chase would have like 1,250 yards. He did not have that. He had an all-pro Triple Crown winning season. Can you project that again? It's always tough to project it. It's always tough to say when a guy's going to have a record-breaking season or an MVP season. But I think we're looking at a Joe Burrow potential MVP type year. And with that means everyone eats on this offense. And so far, in my opinion, under Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, Dan Pitcher, everyone on this offense has flourished, right? Like how many guys really were like, yeah, maybe Jermaine Burton so far, and maybe in year 2, he does his thing. But CJ Uzomah getting big contracts, Hayden Hurst getting contracts elsewhere, Higgins hitting his ceiling, Jamar Chase hitting his ceiling, Andre Osbosh probably has hit his ceiling. Chase Brown was a 5th round pick. Joe Mixon had some of his best years in the league. And then Joe Burrow has been an MVP and twice comeback player of the year. So why wouldn't we project this offense to look excellent again? The hard part is going to be this defense and wondering, how do we project it? How do we see it? Where do we see it getting better? Where can we see it struggling a little bit? Let's go over the stat projections first, and then I'll take those. And my method for seeing how I think the Bengals will do has been pretty good. And I'll explain that. And we'll go over the schedule and do wins and losses and give you an idea of how I view opponents and how I view what the schedule looks like for the Bengals. And it gives you an idea of what I think their floor, their ceiling, and the likely outcome is for the 2025 Bengals. Let's jump in. Top of the screen here, I've got Joe Burrow, starting with the quarterbacks, of course, in the passing offense, because it allows me to get a basis for what I think this offense is going to be. And this is the first time I'm projecting 17 games for Joe Burrow. Last year I projected 16 because I thought he would sit one game and sit one game at the end, and the Bengals would be fighting for a bye week and maybe have the division clinched up in the final week of the season. That did not happen, obviously, but I'm going to bring down the attempts just a little bit from last year, just a little bit. His completion percentage is going up just a little bit. Yards are down a little. Yards per attempt down a little. Still, he's got 38 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions. His interception percentage keeps going down each year. I'm going to keep it going. That ends up being a 106.4 rating and taking 39 sacks this year, which is down from 48. This is a guy that gets sacked often. Maybe this year it's even lower. Like I could see, I started looking at projections and saying, okay, not projections. I started looking at data and saying, okay, if his sack avoidance or pressure to sack ratio stays all year, like it is typically from like week 6 to week 17, if that's all year, this could be like 32 sacks. So he could, get his way out of maybe 7 more sacks or so this year. if he's on it from the jump. If he's LSU Joe Burrow from the jump, maybe it's like 32, but he's always going to be a guy that gets sacked, in my opinion, 25 times plus, because he's going to drop back as many times as he does. Jake Browning numbers here just because. Don't think too much into it there. He may have to finish a game. He may play the final game of the season after, maybe Burrow starts it and Browning finishes it. Usually you have to project something there for the backups when you do these, because if I gave these all to Burrow, then he'd be breaking his own numbers every single time. And it's typically not how it goes. But if he does play every single snap, which is possible, throw another touchdown on Burrow. Maybe he gets to 40. Throw another, maybe because his average will be a little bit higher. Maybe throw another 220 yards on there. All that combines, as we scroll down to the receivers a little bit, and you can see it's there. I'm not going to scroll down too much. 4,682 yards. Now remember, this has to equal each other. The attempts do not, because we have throwaways, we have spikes, right? Those that count as attempts. And the catches, sometimes there's guys that are brought up and Kendall Milton may catch a ball, right? So I don't have those guys on the roster. I don't have them. Like, we didn't know Cam Grandy was going to catch a few balls last year when we started this. So you always leave some room for some catches, although I left no room for yards. It was tough bringing down the yards on these guys. But I couldn't go above that. So that's why I ended here. And then we want to end up with 39 touchdowns, which is what the passing offense ends up with. So this is an MVP type season for Joe Burrow. It'll largely depend on how many games they win. It'll largely depend on what Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen do, to be honest with you. And then anybody else that jumps in there. It could be Pat Mahomes again, of course. But Lamar's his numbers have been absolutely crazy last couple of years, combined with his rushing and Allen's rushing. We talked about this when Burrow was drafted. Like, you're going to the AFC loaded with quarterbacks. It's not crazy that one of those guys could win MVP over Burrow with these type of numbers, especially like Jared Goff last year at a 111 passer rating, right? So 106 is fantastic, but there are a couple guys that are above him, like Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff. So you want to put $200 on Joe Burrow? I'm not against that at all. To win MVP, I think he can. All right, Jamar Chase, 16 games. Maybe he misses one. 158 targets, down a little bit, catches down a little bit, yards down a little bit, touches down a little bit. It is hard to say he's going to once again score 17 touchdowns, right? He might, if he did that back-to-back years, crazy. But even if you go look at Triple Crown winners over the history, they typically come down a little bit the next year, right? It's hard to maintain that level. If he does, oh man, we got to get him an Offensive Player of the Year category. T. Higgins typically plays about 12 games the last couple of years, not including if you include the games he has suited up for and then never played, which was like a Ravens game a couple of years ago. Still, I got him with 113 targets, 75 catches, just over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Again, another very strong year for T. Higgins. If he ever played 16 games, 17 games, his numbers would look very, very good. He'd get up to 90 catches. Maybe this is the year, right? Maybe this is the year that he does play 16. And we're looking at 92 catches and 1,280 yards and 12 touchdowns. That would be awesome, because I think T can do it. He's just always dealing with something. So Yoshi, on the other hand, has been relatively healthy. He's third on the team with 50 targets, 30 catches, 378 yards, a decent average. I actually hid the average there for a second because I didn't want to muddy things up. The average at 12.6, decent average. Although he may end up higher than this. There's a chance, like Higgins last year was 12 something. That Andre catching a lot of deep balls in the summer, I think if he ended up with 13.5 and T's at the 12.6, wouldn't be shocked, because T looked really good last year on the underneath stuff. I don't think we have to force him as a deep ball, jump ball receiver only anymore. I think he's a well-rounded player that may get into the slot a little bit more this year than he has in the past, which may put Yoshi on the outside, which may raise his average a little bit. But 3 touchdowns for Yoshi. Now the next guy, Jermaine Burton. Remember, he saw, 9 targets and caught 1 ball, 3 balls? Well, it might have been 1 ball. No, I think it was more than that. I think it was 4 catches. I'm losing it now. I looked at it all this morning when I was wrapping this up. But little increase for him. So 11 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown, getting his first touchdown of his career. Again, do I think he's replacing Yoshi? I don't. And if you would ask me midway through camp, I may have said this split would be a lot closer. But already he was hurt. He may not miss time, but I've got to put him down for 12 games. Maybe that's inactive for certain reasons or reasons that aren't due to injury. I hope not. I hope he's completely healthy and clear this whole year. And I hope he does play. And if he does, these numbers could look much greater. And I think we got about 500 yards to split between Yoshi and Burton. So let's do it. Tinsley, I know he's a preseason favorite and all that. The fourth and fifth guys don't catch a lot of balls. I think Charlie Jones had one catch last year. You don't get to these guys much, but I did give them a little bit. You could really wipe these out and say, really, they've won 2 catches for him, 1 for him, if that's the case, and give those back to Jamar Chase. That's how he ends up with the Triple Crown, things like that. I don't project either of them to score a touchdown. So, if a guy goes down, if Higgins goes down, I think Burton is the next guy up. It could be Tinsley, though. Don't be shocked if it's Tinsley. I think they like him a lot. And if that's the case, then these numbers will instantly be out of whack. So dropping down to the tight ends. Strong years again for Mike Gesicki. He'll be third on the team in targets. 72 targets, 53 catches, 539 yards, and 5 scores, getting in the end zone a bunch. Noah Fant, that's a guy that gets 500 yards pretty much every year, but he's going to have to drop down a little bit, being the second tight end, unless, here's where the unless, maybe this happens. Maybe Yoshi isn't as involved. Maybe they're not so much 3 wide receivers. We're seeing the Bengals do 2 tight end sets more and more and more. Maybe that's Gesicki in the slot and that, or wherever you want to play him. And then Noah Fant at more of the traditional tight end. And then you add like 10 or 15 catches to this, and he gets to 45 and 450 yards. You get 2 tight ends like that. That'd be pretty crazy. Never been a big touchdown guy, especially the last couple of years. I could see his average being a little bit lower as he's getting underneath catches, a lot like Eric All did and stuff like that. Hudson's still going to play a little bit, especially if Gesicki misses any time. Hudson will be the next guy up to get called up in that role. Drew Sample, he's always going to get a few catches. Maybe 1 a game, maybe he scores a touchdown. And then Cam Grandy will probably play a little bit. Although I wouldn't be shocked if Grandy was active just as much as Hudson. That's why I got them both for 13 games. I don't think Grandy's the type of guy they're going to force feed targets to, and I got his average at 5.2 per catch. Chase Brown, though. Chase Brown's where we're going to get to fantasy winners and what that looks like. 71 targets this year. Number comes up 57 catches, around what he had last year. 349, around what he had last year, and 3 touchdowns. And we would take that. And then still using Samaje Perine a decent amount. 24 targets, 119 yards, and a touchdown for him. This is, again, the passing game. This is catches for him. And then in the running game, 244 carries, which is the load. He's getting the load for the Bengals. over 1,000 yards, 4.2 a carry, and 8 touchdowns. You combine those two together, 1,025 yards and 350 yards, basically 1,375 yards and 11 touchdowns. Chase Brown, that's a guy you want to have. I think that you're getting very close. And you are getting over 300 touches total. That's a guy you want in fantasy. I think he's going to be a big player for this team. And really, that's, if you just count up yards, it's Jamar Chase, and then it's Chase Brown, right? As the guys that are featured in this offense pretty consistently. And I'm excited for that and what that looks like. Now, I do think the splits and carries for the backups, Bengals typically get around, they had 380 carries last year. I got them at 388 now. They were around 1,550 and for yards, and they had 11 touchdowns last year. I'm going to give them one extra touchdown. I'm going to give them 8 more carries and a couple more yards. Maybe a more efficient run game. These basic stats probably don't show it, but I think if we're looking at EPA and success rate, I expect both of those to go up. Perine getting a couple touches and carries per game, and maybe Taj Brooks getting a game or 2 where he gets featured a little bit more than most, and just a solid rookie season where he flashes a little bit, because I think he'll have some catches also. 6 for 26. I had him up there getting a few. And then rushing, of course, Burrow comes down a little bit, but it's still 4 yards per carry and a touchdown. And we got Jamar Chase getting a couple reverses. Maybe Charlie Jones gets a jet sweep, and then Jake Browning getting a couple of when and if he gets to play. That all increases the running stats just a little bit. The passing numbers, efficiency-wise, really good, but maybe down just a little bit from where they were last year. And maybe that's because they have a lead just a little bit more often. That could be the difference there. Now I've got a total here for snaps. I'm a little high on the snaps from what they were last year, but they had a lot of people play last year on the defense. A lot of injuries happened. You'll see tackles will be the second number. I got tackles about where they were last year. I've got pressures a little bit higher. I've got sacks higher, getting about 8 more sacks this year. And then I have interceptions going up by 1. Now let's look at individual for the defensive line. What I expect to see: Trey Hendrickson, defensive end number 1. I think at the end of the season, don't be shocked if Shemar Stewart is number 2 for snaps. But right now, I'm going to project Joseph Ossai because he's going to start at end. I think he's the other starter outside of Hendrickson. And then he's going to play defensive tackle in the pass rush situation too, especially because they're D tackles. They don't have a pass rusher on the roster, and we'll get to that. Shamar Stewart, though, because he can do a lot of that as well, and he's a first-round pick, I think he's going to play a ton. And I think he's going to end up with the third most, if not the second most, defensive end snaps. And then Myles Murphy comes in fourth, still getting a bunch of snaps, nearly 400. If he gets 400, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a pretty even split between the 2, 3, 4 DNs on this roster. People tell him, I've read a comment the other day, Joe loves Myles Murphy. He won't stop talking about him. It's not that. It's that he's a first-round pick, and the Bengals are going to use him until they're 100% sure he's not a good player. And I think there's people in that building that still believe he is. Now, tackles. Again, I was really close on Osai last year. I got him 31 tackles, 33 pressures, 6.5 sacks, second on the team in sacks. Again, I've got for Hendrickson, I was pretty close on him as well. 67 pressures, down just a little bit, 14.5 sacks, down just a little bit, and an interception. Maybe he'll drop back into coverage and shock somebody. But I think the fun one is Myles Murphy getting off that 0 sack sophomore season. Year 3 gets 3 sacks. And also for Shamar Stewart getting 3 sacks, almost matching what he did in college in his rookie year in the NFL. Now, some people say, oh, he's going to get 6. Maybe if he does, that'd be great. I'd love to turn this from 44 to 47 sacks. And that's when you're starting to creep up towards the top of the league. Again, I don't know. I think the defense is going to be tough to judge this year going in. Maybe halfway through, we might blow this all up and be like, oh, yeah, they're good on defense. That'd be great. If we're saying that halfway through, this team's winning 13-plus games. So down to the defensive tackles, B.J. Hill, this is a little less snaps than he normally gets. This is about what T.J. Slayton gets, 695 to 605. And that leaves about 500 and something for your third defensive tackle. So that's, again, it's a lot of snaps. If you look at it like comparison, the ends, Shamar Stewart getting 550, Chris Jenkins getting 540. And then I've got tackles, defensive tackles tend to get more tackles. Pressures, 30 for B.J. Hill, 17 for Slayton because he's not much of a pass rusher. Chris Jenkins with 23, which we would take in a second year. He had to get 11 or 12 last year and then 3 sacks. We'll take 23 and 4 sacks out of Chris Jenkins in a solid sophomore season. TJ Slayton getting 1 sack and BJ Hill getting 4.5. So a lot of your, your top pass rushers here. Your second pass rusher is probably BJ Hill, Chris Jenkins. We'll see if Shamar and Myles Murphy can make a dent and cross over these guys. That'd be very nice. Howard Cross, McKinley Jackson backing up and getting those snaps in there. They did sign after I did this. They did sign Mike Pennell, the nose tackle, backup nose tackle. I think he'll be active, especially in those run games. Those early in the season, we'll look at those teams soon. They play a lot of run teams early. Don't project too much for those guys. Maybe 1 sack for McKinley Jackson, maybe a half for Howard Cross. Maybe that's the opposite. Maybe 1 for Cross, maybe a half for McKinley Jackson. All right, going on the linebackers. And the Bengals had 3 defensive players get 1,000 snaps last year. I'm going with 3 again, being Jordan Battle, Cam Taylor-Britt, and Logan Wilson. I think last year it was Jermaine Pratt, Geno Stone, and Cam Taylor-Britt getting it. Logan Wilson with 91 tackles, 14 pressures, which is more than he normally gets, and 1.5 sacks, which is around what he gets, but I think he's going to blitz a lot. And I think the same out of Demetrius Knight is their number 2 starter. 71 tackles, 17 pressures, 2 sacks. I got 3 picks for Logan Wilson. I got 1 for Demetrius Knight. I think Oren Burks is going to play a decent amount, and I think Barrett Carter will as well. You can typically get about 500 for your depth linebackers if we see injuries here. But I think we'll see a bit of a rotation. 35 tackles and 26 for the backups, half a sack for each. And I'm expecting a bounce back year for captain again for Logan Wilson. Also captains B.J. Hill and Trey Hendrickson. We didn't talk about this on offense, but it was Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and then Ted Karras and Orlando Brown Jr. So let's hope Demetrius Knight's very good and it's not just stats that he racks up. I want to see him actually be good because if not, I think Burks and Carter can play for you really well. Now, hard to project at corner when Cam Taylor-Britt's coming back from injury. Dax Hill and DJ Turner coming back from injury. These could be wildly different. Like Cam, I expect a bounce back year, 64 tackles and 1 sack because I think we're going to blitz, or 1 pressure, no sacks, and then 3 interceptions. I think it's a bounce back year for him, staying healthy again and showing that he can be a starting corner in the league, deserving of an extension, maybe with the Bengals, maybe with somebody else. Dax Hill, though, coming back from injury, there's a chance he is the 1,000-snap guy in the secondary. And just they don't take him off the field, and they figure out where he plays and move him all around. Remember, there were times last year Cam was getting benched. Still ended up with 1,000 snaps. Dax Hill could be that guy for sure, but coming off an injury, I got to give him 13 games here and just hope that it's more than that. 46 tackles, 2 pressures, half a sack, and 2 interceptions for him. DJ Turner, I think, is getting the third most. I think he's the other starter at corner, even if Josh Newton starts early in the season, because Turner's still coming back a little bit. He got banged up in camp. 27 tackles and a pick. Josh Newton, 385, down from last year. He was at 500 last year. He played a ton last year. 21 tackles and an interception as well. I think Ivy and Marco Wilson round out that depth chart, and really don't see a lot of playing time. If these guys get hurt, I think they're okay with these guys, especially because Newton's your fourth. I think he's a capable player in the league, and I'm excited to see if he looks better in year 2. Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, eating 90% of these snaps this year. Last year, it was more of a 100%, 50%, and then Von Bell getting the other 50%, right? I don't see that type of split this time. I think Tyson Harrison will play more. He's only played like 1 snap in his NFL career. We got him at 180, which means he plays a little bit, and we'll take that at this point. Geno Stone with 55 tackles, Jordan Battle with 75. We've got pressures from both. We got 3 picks from Geno Stone. He gets his hands on the ball, even with frustration year last year. He had 4 picks last year. And then Jordan Battle gets a pick as well. I don't expect Anthony to play a ton. This would be an improved defense. This would be a little bit better pass rushing team. Get their hands on the ball a little bit more. We don't have fumbles and stuff in here. That makes a difference. I think the Bengals are going to see a spike in that while tackling physically. Al Golden talked about it today. They want physicality. He wants them to tackle well. He wants them to force turnovers, get that ball back to this offense. And when we're throwing and completing 70% of our passes, that's a good offense. Let's take this and go over to the schedule and see what that looks like. And I say take this because I'm going to show you how I do it, right? I'm looking at quarterback rating and passer rating, and it's the biggest indicator for how much success you're going to have. If you look at game by game, the quarterback with the higher passer rating typically wins the game. Now, why? Well, it's just a number, right? But it says how many yards they threw for, what their yards per attempt was. So you're talking efficiency, how many touchdowns they had versus interceptions. So a guy with more touchdowns and interceptions, they probably scored more points. So you take all these things into account, and it doesn't account for the run game and how many sacks, and if you had a fumble, doesn't account for that. So it's not perfect. But the guy who typically has a higher passer rating is the one who wins the game. Now, looking at Burrow splits, and last year he had a 108.5, which is great, and I've got him for a 106.6 this year. At home, he's got a 106.4. We get an extra home game this year. They got 9 home games versus 8 away games. And then away, Burrow is nearly a 101.7. All that comes out to we got away at a 101.7, and we got home at a 106.4. That's basically what I have him projected this year, what he's going to do. And that's an average game. Sure, he can have stinkers. He can have more than that. He's had 130, 140 games. He's also had games where he's had a 65 passer rating. They're not often. And if you look at his numbers in his career passer rating games, the games he's at 100 and plus, they're winning those games. And the games he's below an 80, they're losing those games. So as Burrow goes, this team goes. And now I also look at the opponent, right? So if Burrow's got a 101.7 versus Cleveland, we will take that. I think his career number is lower than that. But lately, he's been fine. And Joe Flacco with the Browns, and then last year with the Colts, he had a 90.5 and a 90.2 with the Browns. So I averaged that to a 90.3. And that's going to give us an advantage of 11.4. The Bengals have a big advantage here if Joe Burrow plays the way we expect him to play. And I put that as a win in the win column, right? Let me actually want to keep this clean and put that to the middle. There we go. That looks much better. So that's 1 win. And this is how we're going to do the schedule. Week 2, back at home. This is against the Jaguars. Lawrence, who surprisingly his rating is typically lower than this. I expect a little bounce back for him. Still, we're at home. Big difference. Big gap there. 14.8. That is a win. I'm going to start with the wins if you haven't been able to tell what I'm doing here. Week 7 at home. Again, we expect Burrow to look good. Rodgers has been at about a 91 the last couple years. We will take that as an opponent. That's a 15 average or 15 advantage. Same thing. Justin Fields surprisingly was a 91.3 last year, or close to it. Now, this is my formula to give me what I expect this year if he's decent. Still, the average passer rating around the league is 92, 93, 94 in that range the last few years. These are average quarterbacks, which means Joe Burrow should beat them. Again, it's an advantage of 15. Even if those were away games, we would take those an advantage. So those are wins. Should be wins. I'm not saying I'm counting them automatically, but if we're projecting. Again, Aaron Rodgers, same thing. This is the away game, so a little bit different advantage. It went from 15-4 to a 10-7 in terms of how strong do we feel about this one. Again, that's a win. Drake May, year 2, good jump from him from like an 86 rating to a 96. Still, big advantage, Bengals, especially at home. I'm going win. And then the final 2 games, we'll skip over that red one right there. Arizona and Kyler Murray. Murray, I think, might take a little step up, still an average quarterback, especially when we're at home against Joe Burrow in the cold. Week 17, marking that as a win. And then I got Dylan Gabriel starting against for the Browns against the Bengals at home in the final game with a 78.5 passer rating performance. That gives us our best advantage of the season, and the Bengals should win that game. So what does that say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Talk about floor and ceiling. I think 8 wins is, again, the floor. Last year it probably was too, right? They snuck a game out. They got to 9-8 the year before, even with Jake Browning, 9-8. 8 wins is the floor. The Bengals should not win less than 8 games with Joe Burrow. Again, that is not the standard. Let's start with the losses. The toughest game this year is without a doubt that Thursday night short week in Baltimore against Lamar Jackson. Jackson at home is much better than he is away. Jackson last year was crazy. I took his last 2 years of quarterbacking plus his home away splits, it still gives us a big disadvantage of -10. Burrow has to play MVP Burrow. He needs to be at a 108 was his career high, 108.5. Even then, that's lower than what we project probably for Lamar Jackson. It's why these games are tight. It's why they're tough. I project that as a loss. That has to be the hardest game on their schedule without a doubt. Now, that's 8-1. So if we have another 1, 2, 3, 4, what happened there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. 6, 7, 8. We have 8 more games left on the schedule that we feel are coin flip games. Now, anything under a 10 advantage, because these are all still advantage games other than these couple down here, within 10 can be coin flip games. So let's start it over now. Let's keep the wins where we had them. They'll probably drop one of those games we expect them to win. They'll probably win a game they're expected to lose. Maybe they win that Thursday night game. J.J. McCarthy in year 2. That Vikings offense gets good quarterback play from whoever they put back there. Darnold was good last year. Kirk Cousins last 2 years. I'm going to bring McCarthy down a little bit from where they normally are in that offense, but still a respectable, almost hitting 95. Still, I think that's a win. The Bengals should start this year pretty well and feeling pretty good about it. Bo Nix at Denver, Monday Night Football. We got a 99.8 expected for Nix. We got a 101.7 expected for Burrow. If anything slips up there, let's split these games. Let's say, you know what? Just didn't get one here. Now, the Bengals at home, 106.4. Goff, 104.2. Goff last year was a 111. You could lose this game to the Lions and not feel bad about it. Just like, it is what it is. We lost this game at home. The Lions are efficient. They're good. Now, Goff's numbers away are worse. They are worse than they are at home in Detroit. So maybe that is the win. But then you travel to Green Bay against Jordan Love, there's times where Jordan Love finishes this year, a lot like Burrow, finishes the seasons very, very high. Still, I'm going to say that's a win for the Bengals and for Joe Burrow to get their 10th win already. And we still got a lot of games left to go. Caleb Williams, I think a jump in year 2 for Caleb Williams, nearly a 99, but still Joe Burrow at his 106. I like the Bengals rattling off a bunch of wins here in the midseason. Then we got our bye week there. Take those 4 wins in a row to the bye week, come out with 2 more wins, 6 in a row, and then you have that Ravens game. It is what it is. Buffalo in Buffalo. Josh Allen's numbers look better in Buffalo when we got an away game. So 101.5 versus a 101.7. Bengals are going to lose some games. This is not, people are going to say it's because you live in Buffalo. No, the Bengals have had Josh Allen and Joe Burrow has had their number and they've played really well. I'm going to say this is a loss here because we have to give them some losses. 4 losses isn't ridiculous. I say we get our revenge on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, when they got to come back to Cincinnati and play, despite having the disadvantage here, it's close enough that could be split either way. And I'm going to split with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Now, the biggest trap game of them all that you guys are overlooking is Tua and the Dolphins in Miami. And why am I saying that? Because Tua's quarterback rating, go look at his numbers. They're good. And yeah, they get worse as the season goes, and they're not as physical. The Dolphins loaded up on physical trench players in the offseason. I think they feel much better about playing in December, and plus they're going to be at home here. But they play much better about playing in December than they have in previous years. I think this could be a trap game. We're talking about a disadvantage for quarterback rating here. It could happen. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the one game they drop that you don't expect them to. That only puts them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses. That is, ladies and gentlemen, 12-5. We will take that. We will be fighting for a top seed. Maybe that Baltimore game, maybe that Buffalo game, maybe that's the difference. You win those games late in the year, win those in December, and you get that top seed. You make them come to your house in January. I don't see why not. And I think if we're just looking at upside, like what could their upside be? I think they can win that game. I think they can win this game. I think they can win this game. Why couldn't they? You're telling me they couldn't beat Buffalo also? Of course they could. This is just the toughest game. That really is the biggest red game they have on their schedule. But go win it. Go handle business. Go win it in 2025. So I think even with the unknowns of the defense, even if you were to add, let's say 5 to the quarterback rating, 5 points to the rating to the opponent because the defense absolutely stinks, the Bengals still have an advantage in all of those games that may or may not be wins. They're going to drop some games. We dropped that Patriots game week 1 last year. If they handle their business, do what they're supposed to do, their schedule is very favorable to come out on top this year, even if the defense is not great. And if it is, well, this team's going to be very, very good because I think the offense is almost bulletproof. Even with question marks, at guard and left guard and right guard, Dylan Fairchild looked really good. I'm a believer at this point. And then I think out of the combo of Reisner and Lucas Patrick should get it done. This is the best in terms of assembled talent. Man, it's up there with 2015. It's up there, right? It's got to be up there. I think it's better than 2005 talent on offense. I think it's up there with 2015, who I thought was the Bengals were absolutely loaded on offense then. I mean, Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu, and you're deep. This is better, right? You want to take this offense better? These tight ends, they had Gresham and Eifert. Would you take Gesicki and Noah Fant? I probably would, even though Eifert was fantastic that year. I mean, the combination of the two here, and then I think they're better at running back. I think Chase Brown is about to be the number 1 and a big fantasy winner for a lot of people as long as he stays healthy. Big difference is the O-line was fantastic in 2015. The O-line here, I think, is going to be good. So let's see if that's the difference, because the other difference is the quarterback is way better this time around. So at the very least, I think we're looking for fun, an exciting year, lots of wins, lots of touchdowns, and can't wait to talk about it and go through it with you guys here on the First Star Media YouTube channel. Until next time, until game time. No, you'll see me next Friday, but next time on Bengals on the Brain, which will be next Tuesday, where we will watch film and review actual football. I don't know how we did it, but we made it. Until then, hoo day.